Hi and welcome. I'm Alison Beer of alisonbeer.com, and today we are going to look at a question that I get asked often: how to cartoonify someone. And in terms of choice of character, this old-timey photograph of a sheriff or someone was used by someone that I was working with, and it just lends itself so perfectly to this exercise for a beginner. So let's take a look at how we can move from this to something much more cartoony, but clearly recognizable from what we started out with. And the first step, as you probably know if you've been around me for more than half a minute, is always to go in with a bit of tracing. And that's exactly what I did here. If you look at this layer, I'll go in with a different color again, but tracing the biggest elements out of this and starting with a stickman, because from a stickman to a cartoon is always the easiest way to go. So getting the face, that big round brim of the hat, then we're going to get some shoulders in place. So we've got a circle for each shoulder joint, going down to show where his arms fit in, elbows down to the wrists, and he's got his hands kind of in his pockets. And then obviously one of the most recognizable things about this is this wonderful, I would call it a waistcoat, but if you're from North America, you probably call it a vest. This amazing waistcoat with the double-breasted 6 buttons coming down, a nice fob chain going across, and of course the black shirt with that white tie coming down. And then he's got his legs. We don't really need to go full stickman on these because it's quite obviously his trousers. These lovely wrinkles showing that he's been wearing them for quite some time, probably without having access to a dry cleaner or any sort of laundering and ironing. So that is how I would set about doing this, just getting the proportions and the sort of layout in my head. And then it's a matter of recreating it for yourself. So you go in with the head and that hat going through. Then we can give him quite a nice thick neck like this. And we're going to go in with his tie like that, and then bringing across the waistcoat shapes. 1, 2, 3 buttons, 1, 2, 3 buttons. And we've got that for his waist. We've got legs coming down here with his trousers all wrinkled. We've got shoulders going out like this. Put your hands on hips. Coming down like that. A few wrinkles obviously at the elbows of his jacket as well. And then he's got lapels on his jacket here because it's kind of going beyond his arms. So he's got his arms very confidently sort of placed on his hips like that, which is opening out his jacket. So his coat, jacket, I would call it a jacket. So that's on each side. And then we can do his face. So he's got that beautiful handlebar moustache. So we'll go and put that in. And oh dear, wrong size of eraser. Let me just erase there so we don't get the sense that his face is cut in half. But as you can see, literally just overlapping 2 ovals. So one for the face, one for the brim of the hat. And then we can show how his hair kind of goes there. We can put in some eyes, nose, handlebar moustache. And before you know it, you've got the remnant of your man coming up. So let's go and take a look at the one that I did before. Now that you've seen how I got started with it, let's go and have a look. So what I did was, obviously I have got the position of all his body parts, which is a quite nice casual pose, but very symmetrical, relatively easy to copy. And what I wanted to show you is that getting the components in place is not that difficult. Once you get the arms in place, you can fill in the sleeves around it and kind of make them bigger than sticks. And then you can fit in this part of his jacket and coat around that, with a bit of shading. And again, you can see that I picked up the triangle kind of shapes of the crossing of this waistcoat. And then I did some exaggeration. So when I did my version here, you can see that I've, as I said here, supersizing of the head and the hat. Because in cartoon characters, a lot of the action, a lot of the emotion comes out of the face and particularly the eyes. So to supersize the head area always makes something look more cartoony. And because it's slightly out of proportion as well, it immediately makes it look more of a cartoon and less of just a drawing of the same character. So I upsized the head and made the brim of his hat a whole lot wider around his head. I made his eyebrows really bushy. He has got pretty bushy eyebrows and quite deep set eyes, but I made them big and dense. And then I completely way overdid it with his moustache on purpose. You can see that I've taken the tips of his lovely handlebar moustache. Well, I've made it a handlebar moustache. His actually doesn't have those sort of tweaky tips, but I've made mine quite pointy at the ends and taken it right beyond his cheeks to really overemphasize that moustachy feeling. And then very square neck. I've gone in with his necktie. I haven't bothered with color here, but what I wanted to show you is that you can work incredibly roughly, and I recommend that you do, because when you work roughly, your brain has so many more lines to work with, and that triggers your imagination and helps you to start to see where you can fill things in. So you can see here that I've used a whole lot of shading here to create that sense of shape. We've got a few wrinkles at the elbows. We've got these wrinkles at his crotch area. And then I overemphasized also this fob chain and the watch, where he's just got a tiny little something or other there, which we can hardly see. I've actually made it quite nice and big to overemphasize that sense of having a watch hanging off a chain there. And so from here, it would be a matter of going in and putting in some outlining and then adding some color. If we wanted to stick with these sepia tones, we could do that. It's pretty dramatic with the black dress shirt and his white tie against that, and then his dark clothes. But this is as far as I wanted to take it today, is literally just showing you, start off with any old-timey kind of photo like this or something that tickles your fancy, work it out with basic stick figure proportions, and then upsize specifically the head, the eyes, and any other specific feature, characteristic feature that you can notice. Make sure you get in something particular. In this case, for me, it was the waistcoat. I just love the way this crosses over and really emphasizes his very challenging kind of throwing down the gauntlet sort of pose that he has there. And then his hands are in his pockets, which was great. We didn't have to draw any hands. And his feet don't feature at all because this is kind of from his knees upwards. Anyway, quick lesson for today on how to cartoonify something. If you find a photograph which tickles your fancy, that's how you do it.
Did you like this video? If you did, please give it a thumbs up here on YouTube and subscribe to my channel. And head on over to my website, alisonbeer.com, and sign up there for newsletter updates. Keep cartooning, and I'll see you next time.